Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Justice League X RWBY, Superheroes and Huntsmen, Part 1. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers, second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and fourth to my Discord server. And join and collab and chill and do all that cool stuff, and shilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Justice League X RWBY, Superheroes and Huntsmen Part 1. So, first and foremost, I did not see any trailers for this. I somehow bizarrely just came across this little crossover. So, suffice it to say, I'm a little surprised. Also, sort of not surprised simultaneously. It's a weird feeling of like, yeah, I can see how RWBY could be considered like in a superhero league, but teaming up with DC? Interesting, okay. So yeah, definitely something I wasn't expecting to see come about in the DC universe in animated style, but here we are nonetheless. So, with that out of the way, knowing zero context, I'm here to review it as objectively as possible. So, the other note I will say is that I have someone who's been watching DC animated movies doing pretty well so far in comparative state to the live action setup, as well as I was watching RWBY up until it stopped being on YouTube after whenever that happened. I do know some notes of like some stuff that happened after, but it's pretty vague knowledge that I have of where RWBY is at this juncture in universe. So apologies if I don't know like how they've advanced their stories and plots, but that is, I guess, not too relevant to this, since it is more so just, again, a crossover with DC characters and creating this more crossover story. Speaking of, the movie begins and we're jumping right in as Superman is just there in the world of Revenant. And this appears to be the case as we later learn out in the movie. So too do appear the other superheroes in the Justice League. So we have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, a Green Lantern, as well as one superpowered individual I don't recognize. So I guess a new superhero or a newer superhero, or maybe just one I'm not familiar with. Anyway, I digress. So they all appear in this world. Oh, and Flash. So Justice League plus one additional character I don't recognize in the Justice League. Oh, and Cyborg. Sorry, also in the Justice League now. So quite a impressive roster of characters to sort of go on through. And the movie opens up with, again, RWBY and Yang, two sisters, Yang being the older sister of the two, fighting off some Grimm, the creatures that inhabit the world of Remnant, for those who are not familiar at all with RWBY. And so, again, Superman is just there, so he actively participates, and if you see the poster here, you can see that Superman looks a little bit different here. This seems to be the adequate place for all of the heroes. In fact, they all appear, and they actually make a case for it in the story itself, that they all appear to be teenagers, which is very common of the RWBY cast, is that they're all sort of these younger characters that end up having to save their world. So yeah, pretty interesting setup for, like, I don't know, new potential designs and little extra setups, like how Batman there, you see in the back there, has actual bat wings, so he actually has powers that in the world of RWBY would make sense, since you have the the race that has the animal parts that stick out. I forget the, like, I know they mention it in the show, but I always forget what it is. It's like Fuana or something like that. Anyway, speaking of them individually, we cut to Blake, Yang's girlfriend. That's like one thing I know from the show in the later seasons. I forget what season they officially hook up. They make some pretty obvious links to each other in this little movie here, but, you know, nothing like a kiss or anything obvious, super obvious, but whatever. Anyway, so Blake is with her mom, and Wonder Woman ends up with her, Blake essentially. We then cut to Weiss, the lower right individual on the poster there. She's in this party with her father being like this company owner, so with her being the rich one of the 4 of the RWBY characters, Bruce Wayne ends up getting stuck with her, so sort of making these sort of integral, like, little connections between the obvious connectors, and Superman talking with RWBY about being a leader. Stuff like that. Wonder Woman connecting with Blake about being a warrior, with Yang also being present for those particular moments with those two. So there's like these little moments that they are obviously trying to set up here. We do see that Bruce is already starting to try to do his thing and try to figure out what's going on. And we do see that the RWBY characters are having their memories be a bit wonky. And what becomes immediately suspicious is that Ozpin comes out as the older character we see him as. Now, I'm familiar enough with the show to know that Ozpin, like, quote-unquote, dies, and then becomes Oscar, like, through an avatar, like, sort of thing, I guess, is the best way of putting this. So I know that much. So I do know that that's a thing that happens as well. And we cut to then our remaining Justice League members. Cyborg. This is where we meet Cyborg, Flash, the Green Lantern, whose name is Jessica, and the one I didn't recognize, whose name is Vixen. She's sort of like a Beast Boy sort of character, I guess. Or, like, she sort of takes on the animal's spirit without becoming the animal, I guess is one way of putting it, is the best way I can describe her power set. So yeah, they're with the remaining crew of our secondary squad of Jean, and I have a tougher time remembering the secondary characters of the RWBY crew, so I do, because it's been a long time since I've seen this squad, so I don't remember their names as well. Nora is one of them. Anyway. So they're, like, practicing here, and trying to figure out what this world is all about. We see that the Green Lantern is without her ring currently, and that's like a bit that's pretty consistent throughout the majority of her entire, like, segment in this little movie here. And as our groups meet up, as soon as they meet up, they pretty much split up pretty quickly into 3 little groups to sort of discover further of, like, what's going on with all of these memories. Why are these why are these characters even here, etc., etc. And it seems like the DC characters are also having memory issues as to why they are here, and there seems to be a battle sequence that was taking place that mysteriously brought them here. Seems to be the vague concept of what's going on here is what... Anyway, So we follow Weiss as some Grimm are fighting off them off, and they seem to be feeding off dust, which apparently is something that they weren't able to do before. So this is adding to their suspicions that something isn't quite right with this world, or where they are anyway. So we have some more team-ups, Cyborg and Nora. Makes sense, right? Nora is, I believe she was the one that had the very... Was she the android, I think? Yeah, right? Or am I thinking of someone else? That's... Am I getting Nora confused with another RWBY character? Oh god. See, I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't know the secondary team as well as I probably should. But again, I haven't seen RWBY in so long. Anyway. But he does... Cyborg doesn't feel as useful. At any rate, we cut to the Green Lantern, who focuses on her power even without having the ring, and John is there as someone who is struggling with his own, as they call it in their world, their semblance or aura. And so he's like there with her, so they're having their moment. And she has a pretty cool hero speech here. I won't even deny it. Like, for as much as this movie crossover is pretty much a showcase of, like, just action setup sequences, for the most part, I won't deny that there are moments that appeal to, like, oh, there's actually a little bit to chew on here as far as, like, substance and character are concerned. Like, we have little bits that, like, are like, oh, that's appealing to something a little bit more than just having characters fight, which again is a huge chunk of what makes up this movie, by the way. I'm not even gonna lie about that, so, you know. Anyway, we cut to Wonder Woman training and failing, at least initially, with her trying to get used to her powers being a little bit shifted from what she's used to. And again, as I was just explaining, she just has a different little moment with explaining what her warrior lifestyle is like with Blake and Yang specifically. So they go fight some Grimm. Now, we cut back to Jean and the Green Lantern, when Jean starts to hear Pyrrha. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the show, Pyrrha was a character that appeared on RWBY that John had a major crush on and had major feelings for, and Pyrrha sacrificed her life for him, or for... I forget, like, the full setup, because there's, like, a little extra thing with, like, elemental stuff going on with her, too, from what I can recall. But I forget the villain's name, takes her out. She has, like, long black hair, red dress. Yeah, but I'm completely blanking on her name, though. Anyway. So Pyrrha's talking to him, and he's sort of getting coaxed by it a little bit here. Meanwhile, our big group, like RWBY, Superman, and most of the good chunk of the Justice League are here, fighting off this Grimm, which is a wyvern. And we get another fight, and Flash gets downed pretty early in the fight, and some of the characters, I think Superman included, get a little bit sussed out by Flash's abilities and how he was suddenly, like, brought out of the fight. We see little team-ups in our fighting sequences here, like Cyborg teaming up with Nora, as I mentioned earlier. They were already having their little moments there. We have Weiss and Batman trying to go deeper into trying to understand what's going on. And we have Pyrrha tricking this fake Pyrrha, or possessed Pyrrha, or whatever this is that's happening here. That seems to trick Jean and in tow Green Lantern into going into this small room and essentially leaving them there. So, with that going on, the walls are like getting ready to essentially collapse or like enclose in them, and so Jean is trying to get her to see that she does not need the ring to essentially do what she needs to do, and so she goes to say the legendary Green Lantern mantra, and sure enough, that works. So that's pretty neat, I guess. Not sure how that works, but I guess it works in this world. Again, they're in the world of RWBY, so it's following their rules, so I think that's apt. Again, it's been a while since I've understood RWBY's rules, so I do apologize for, like, not being as, like, objective as I possibly can when I'm struggling to understand the source, because it's, again, just been way too long. Anyway, so the others join the big fray. We see our, pretty much our squad meeting up. We learn that the Flash is actually being controlled by Kilgore, which is a villain I'm not familiar with at all. And he sort of dispouts his evil monologue, which is like, ugh, come on. And he says that he thought it'd be a great idea to bring them, the Justice League, here and turn them into teenagers. Not kids, teenagers specifically. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really get it either, but whatever. Anyway, they all fight, and Barry uses Morse code to help the other individual. I believe it was Superman or Batman that figures this out. Batman, I think, is the one who figures this out, pretty much. And the entity known as Kilgore breaks away from Flash, or the other way around. So he's able to give the trinkets that he took while under possession back to Green Lantern and Vixen. So she's able to use more of her powers too, and Green Lantern's able to have like the actual objects appear instead of doing the whole mind thing. So it's just an enhancement on her abilities. Like, she still has some abilities that are latent to her. It's just like it's like an extension, essentially. Anyway, so, speaking of the Lantern, she is the one to end the combat sequence with the Wyvern, and they have their little moment at the lab where the groups that I've been mentioning before have their little goodbye moments with all of each other. They open two portals, one to the DC world and one to RWBY's world, because it turns out that the world that they've been inhabiting this entire time is sort of like this VR simulation program that they've been installed into. As we look and see from RWBY's world perspective, they all wake up and you see they're all in their modern costumes. So everything we were seeing beforehand was them in their like prior setup gear from like earlier seasons. And RWBY suspects or puts together that whatever was going on was the culprit was somebody from their world, which indicating from part 1, perhaps there might be some sort of flip-flop, or like the RWBY heading into the DC world to like get them back, or I'm not really sure what part 2 is going to comprise of exactly, but I think that's my immediate suspicion anyway, just so we can get what the flip side would be of like what RWBY would be like in their world, since we already had it this way. Anyways, that is it for Justice League X RWBY Superheroes and Huntsmen Part 1. And again, it's for the most part more so an action showcase collaboration, which is fine, I guess. Again, it has its like little moments here and there of like little character moment beats that are like, yeah, that was a little neat uh, bit there. Uh, I would have liked a little bit more of those, I suppose, because those, I think, breathe that extra life into the combat instead of it just being fully combat oriented. Not that I don't appreciate combat, it's just that I think it only serves to enhance the combat more so, is what I'm trying to get at. So I think for a score, I think it was enjoyable. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10, as again, I think there could have been a little bit more bits of just a few more character moments here and there, perhaps, and I think that would have been brought it up to a 7 or stronger score. And I do look forward to part 2. Maybe we'll see even more character moments. Again, this is split up into 2 parts. Or maybe more. I'm not actually even really sure how many parts they have already established together. I have no clue. But for the time being, for this part, I'll currently give it a 6 out of 10 currently. So since it's in parts, it is technically it's a full movie, but I get the connotation of a part can elude or confuse, I guess, potentially. I don't know. Anyway, that's my review of this movie. If you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One way you over to my petition, so get to my Patreon and PayPal, fourth to my Discord server. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.